two, 1 2 1 2, 1 2 1 2. One two one two.
Can I have your attention, please? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 2023 Annual General Meeting. Before I formally hand over to the Chair to open the meeting, I have a few housekeeping points I would like to cover. Firstly, I can confirm we have a quorum in the room, which allows us to proceed with company business or club business. We also have 65 in the room, plus we have circa 20 online at the moment. So thank you for your attendance and your support. Today, voting will be conducted by show of hands. May I remind you that members who are present here in person are entitled to one vote on a show of hands. We're also streaming the AGM on YouTube to provide additional capacity for members that could not be here in person. Those attending online will be able to participate in the meeting by asking questions using the chat function. These questions will be presented to the panel. Please be aware that members are being monitored on Zoom and the chat function will only be available once the Q&A begins to avoid disruption prior to that. With that, I'm going to hand over to the Interim Chair, Martin Eden. Thank you for your attendance again. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, and welcome from me to the 2023 AGM of
Surrey County Cricket Club. If I may first introduce you to the top table, Steve Elworthy, our Chief Executive, on my right, Alex Stewart, our Director of Cricket, Andrew Lane on the far left, our Finance Director, and Warwick Jones, our Interim Treasurer. And also welcome to those on the supporting table, which includes Cam Lally from our solicitors, Wedlake Bell, Emily Field from our auditors, Deloitte, and of course Callum Doyle, our Company Secretary. And also in the room tonight, we have a number of members of the General Committee and the Board, and perhaps I could ask them to stand if they would, so that you can identify them and you can ask them difficult questions after the meeting. Thank you. So first, I'm going to start this meeting with an apology, and that is for the date and time of this meeting. And I'm aware that that is far from ideal. We could not arrange this meeting on a non-match day this year. And the schedule came out late, as you know, and we basically had a 50-50 chance of a home or away match, and it has landed on an away match at Chelmsford, which is about the worst outcome possible from that point of view. So I apologise for that. I can tell you that next year the meeting will be on the last Wednesday in April, which we would hope will not be a match day, because we would be hopeful of Thursday starts at the beginning of next year as well. So I do appreciate all of those of you who've come over from Chelmsford today to make it here, and we will try not to repeat this in the future. So if I could next go to the point where with the Surrey, where we remember members of the Surrey family who have sadly passed away in the last 12 months. And I would like to mention the following: Philip Anderson, Anne Atkins, Bill Bateman, James William Booth, Len Charman, John Croker, Mohammed Galadari, John Higginbottom, Andy Hilburn, David Jupp, Roy Lewis, James Massey, and Christopher Pennicate and Dennis Wright. And you will know some or all of those names, I'm sure. There are some I just would like to say a few words about. Anne Atkins was an integral part of the Surrey Supporters Club, and with her daughter Sarah, she organised and ran the away coaches for many years. She ran raffles to raise money for the Surrey Youth Programme. She baked cakes for the Supporters Market at Guildford, and she was awarded honorary life membership in the early 2000s. And it was Anne's funeral 2 days ago. She leaves the Surrey family with very fond memories. So that's Anne. Roy Lewis. Roy played for Surrey between 1968 and 1973. He was county championship winner in 71. He was often called on to deputise for more established players, including, for example, John Edridge, when they were called away on England duty. He later went on to coach, and he played for over 2 decades at Spencer, and he was the first player in the Surrey Championship to score 10,000 runs. And finally, I just want to say a few words about Mohammed Galadari. Mr. Galadari was a huge supporter and generous supporter and sponsor of the club. Over the last 15 years, he contributed an enormous amount to Surrey, and his legacy, of course, lives on with the Galadari stand, which really was the crowning moment in his long association with the club. He'd also previously supported the construction of a new entrance to the Oval's Pavilion, if you remember, in 2012, which was looking a bit shabby at the time. He also backed a lot of work in the Lambeth community and improvements to the grounds museum. And also in 2016, he established the Saud Galadari Scholarship, which allowed promising young players to train with the professional squad, and the first recipient of that scholarship was Amar Verdi. So Mr. Galadari loved cricket, loved the Oval, loved being part of Surrey Cricket Club, and we remember him today. So could I ask those who are able to stand just for a few moments of reflection to remember these friends of the club. Thank you. So, First, before we proceed to the formal part of the AGM, I'm going to ask Alec, followed by Steve, to talk a little bit about the 2022 year and season and looking ahead to the 2023 year and season. And that will follow a short video.
You say you're fine, but I can see right through. You're holding your secrets for way too long. This can't keep going on. With every lie, they keep on hurting you, getting away with everything they do. This can't keep going on. No, we're gonna find them, and I'm gonna fight for you. They better start hiding. We'll be running with the lions, lions. We'll be running with the lions, lions. They can't run, they can't hide. We won't stop until they're down. We'll be running with the lions, lions.
Oh, that's bigger. That's to the short boundary. That's well into the crowd. And I think, judging by the response, that's another clear catch put down.
I'll climb the mountains for you. Tell me, 'cause I'm looking out for you. This can't keep going on. No, 'cause you're not
The crowd are with you all the way. And there it is, carved away over the offside. One bounce for. Outstanding work. Fortress Kia Oval. They are not just hard to beat, they are so far impossible to beat here at home in whatever format you care to put in front of them.
Is come off the ice. It's to my right, and it's ready to be consumed. Tattersall has been thrashed out towards the boundary, and there it is! Surrey win by 10 wickets. They win their 21st county championship title, their 14th since the Second World War. No other.
Past, but wasn't it good? So it's pretty good to stand here as current champions of the country, and we're going to try. People have said defend it. Those who've heard me speak earlier this year, we're not defending it, we're going to attack it. To me, defence is a very negative word, so we're going to be positive and really attack the opportunity of winning back-to-back championships. We started off okay, but I've also said in the past it's a marathon, not a sprint, so let's see how we go. But we're very proud, we're very pleased, and we celebrated it. Excuse me, we celebrated it well. If we take ourselves back to the start of 2022, we had a few challenges. Vikram Solanki, our head coach, Richard Johnson, our assistant head coach, both left. Vikram went off to the IPL, where in his first year as Director of Cricket of Gujarat Titans won. Richard Johnson went off head coach across the river to Middlesex and got promotion. So they obviously learnt well here. Which meant we had to fill in the spots. Gareth Batty stepped up as interim head coach. He then had 6 months of a pretty good interview and was rewarded with the job in October, having gone through a full and proper process. Jim Troughton and Azam Mahmood also we brought in as interim coaches, and they are now in place. So I'm very, very happy with that management team. They've earned the right to be where they are now, but the work they did at late notice, to be honest, should be applauded. And I thank them for all the hard work that they did last year. When you win anything, it's a squad effort. You'd have heard Gareth Batty last year perhaps speak about the squad. We speak about the squad. We don't talk about the 11. It's very much an all-together effort. Whether it's the management, whether it's the players, whether it's everyone who's associated with the club. Everyone plays their part in making us successful. Winning the championship, to me, is still the primary tournament. And that is what we aim to do again this year, and what we want to do again the year after that. There are other competitions which we want to win, but I hope if I asked you all what you want the team to win, most of you may nod your head and go to county championship. So it was a squad effort. I'm just going to single out probably not the right word, mention a few people. Dan Worrell, who we signed, has come in and fitted into this setup immaculately. High-class bowler, high-class person, and obviously his results speak for themselves. Jamie Overton, who joined and had a difficult first year with injuries, last year made an England debut on the back of his performances with us. And Kemar Roach, who has been in and around with us for a period of time, he's West Indies, he's Barbados, but he's also Surrey. And to have him back again this year is a great bonus. And then there's one man who's now no longer with us as a player, but someone who's had a massive influence in the dressing room, but most importantly, the runs out in the middle played such a massive part in the success that we've had. And that is the great, and I use that word great, Hashim Amla. And Hash, thank you for everything you've done for the club. You're always welcome back here. So that was the championship. Brilliant. Very, very pleased, very proud of everything that happened. And now let's see what 2023 brings. T20, we've still not won it while I've been in this role. We won it back in first year, 2003, I think it was. We've been to final stage, etc. Last year, I felt we had a squad going into the season to win it. Then we saw the England itinerary, and good old England and the ECB decided to run white ball cricket during the T20 blast, which hampered all counties. We got hit hard. Having said that, we got the quarter-final, had a home quarter-final against Yorkshire, and we should have won it. We lost by 1 run. As you can tell, I haven't got over it. But it was a game we were losing, we should have won, but we didn't. So it's okay getting to knockout stages, but we're about winning. So a little bit of a black mark. This year we're attacking it even more. There's no England white ball cricket during this period of time. We've lost a couple of players to injury already, or look like being out of the T20 because of injuries they've sustained in other competitions around the world, which I may get questioned about later on. But we're going into the T20 to win it this year, on the back of falling at the first knockout stage last year. The 50 over comp, we've used that as a development competition because of that other competition called the 100. We lost, I think, up to 13 players last year, but it gave a brilliant opportunity for a second year on the trot for some of our youngsters. People who may only have just played second team cricket are now playing list A first team cricket, which is a great experience for them. They're sampling a little bit about first team cricket, what it's about, the expectation, and we're seeing how they react in that environment. And it also gave us a brilliant opportunity to play 3 academy players, which we should be proud of. We speak well about our development system. Chris Taylor is now head of that. And to have 3 players from that academy, again, is a real big tick in the box for this club. One of those, Yusuf Majid, has now earned a full professional contract on the back of what he did last year, and obviously we were aware of him having come through the youth system. So overall, I'd say it was a good year. Won the county championship. I think I'm right in saying we had 9 players from Surrey who played for the full England team, whether it's test matches, 50 over or T20 in 2022. We had 1 or 2 players who played in the England Lions. We had 3 players who played and represented the England under-19s. And finally, of the 30 domestic players we have on our squad this year, 19 of them have come through our youth system, which again is a credit to the club from bottom to top, top to bottom, whichever way you wish to look at it. You know, when I came into the role those years ago, my 3 targets were to make us the best county in the country, to produce players for England, and to make sure that we're producing players through our system, aiming to have a minimum of 60% homegrown players on our staff. We're moving in the right direction, but we've got to keep moving forward. We don't want last year just to be a one-off. We saw 2018 was great. We were hopeful of 19. We failed. We're learning from that. We've got a group that is still growing, still maturing, and it's a wonderful group of players, wonderful group of cricketers, but a wonderful group of people as well. And under Rory Burns' leadership, we're moving in the right direction. So with a bit of skill, a lot of hard work, and hopefully a bit of luck along the way, let's see what we're saying this time next year. But thank you for your support in 2022. I hope it's a year that you were proud of. I certainly was proud of it. Can we better it this year? And that's a challenge that we're throwing to the dressing room. So thank you for listening. Enjoy the rest of the AGM. Thank you.
Alec, I'm sure on behalf of everybody in the room and on behalf of the club as well, just a massive thank you for your leadership, your guidance. I know we have conversations on the side of the field and in quiet little corners during the course of the week, but I think the leadership, the guidance, the perseverance, the resilience you've shown, and some of the forthright language and some of the conversations we've had, I think have been outstanding. And that is in no small due success to where the team is right now, to your guidance. Thank you very much. Brilliant. Thank you. Good evening again, everybody. I've got a couple of slides for you. I think I've got 5 of them to take you through. Yes, there's going to be a little bit of cricket in there, but also a few other slides in relation to initiatives that the club has got and is going on. We'll touch on a few developments that are happening in and around the club towards the back end of the presentation, but also just to really scope out some of the stuff that we've heard from members over the course of the last year or so. This time last year, I was 3 months into my job, and I was sitting actually thinking about what the position of the club was and where the club was going to be in the next sort of 8 to 10 years, in line with the Future Tours program and the ICC events that are in place until 2030, 2031. And it was a very interesting time, and we ended up with a fantastic, very ambitious ambition of where we wanted to take the club by 2030. But one of the things we did decide was we had to make sure that our priorities that we addressed in 2022 and 2023 and the years preceding that or after that actually mirrored and echoed where we were taking the club in the future. So what I am going to do in the first slide is take you through some of our 23 priorities. Now, this is clearly not an exhaustive list. It's just some of the headline items that I've got for you that I'll just have a brief discussion about each of them. There are 1 or 2 slides that have a bit more detail on at the back end, which I will elaborate on. But within the club, within each department, we do have an exhaustive list of how each department is going to contribute towards driving this club forward. And that is something that we meet on a regular basis, either as directors in a leadership group that the club take very seriously. It's integrated into all of our performance appraisals as staff, and it is around the overall ambition of where this club is going to be by 2030, 2031. Alec, I know he doesn't like talking about this, but clearly one of the key focuses for us, and I think probably the top 2, I'll chat a little bit about women's cricket, but obviously winning trophies is clearly one of the first things from a priorities perspective in 23 that we're looking at. So that's men and women's trophies as well across the club, and it does integrate. We've heard from Alec, and I'm going to not chat about the men's game. I think he articulated perfectly the position of where we are as a club and his ambition in terms of aggressively driving and not defending titles, which is fantastic. But I think just purely maybe to elaborate a little bit on the women's game is something that I wanted to share with the group today and with the AGM. Clearly there is a Surrey pathway and a Surrey team, and that is part of a pathway that runs into the South East Stars. During the course of the year that we've got coming up, we have a double header, which is in a double header with the Kent Blast match on the 26th of May, which is a showcase of the women's game with the South East Stars. One of the reasons I brought this up is because the women's game is going to go through a transition, I would feel, over the course of this year. We've got funding from the ECB for the women's game and for the pathway, which is up until 2025. And we have had a conversation with the ECB that they are looking now to develop the future strategy for the women's game for the next 10 years. And that will be developed in consultation with the counties over the course of this next year. So by the end of this year, we should have the strategic direction of where the women's game is going to go. So really particular focus for us. And I do think we're going to see a lot more integration and potentially, because as we've seen, the women's matches are wanting, the women's teams are wanting to play in bigger venues during the course of their seasons. So we understand the pressures that we have as a venue in terms of the pressures on the grass that we have out there, but at the same time we do need to find a way of showcasing the platform and showcasing the women's game. But I think we do need a strategic direction, because we have had with the women's game oscillate a little bit over the years in terms of where it is going. Who does it belong to? Yes, we've got our Surrey pathway, and I know we partner with Kent when it comes to the Southeast Stars, but that regional program was put in to develop players for England, and I think it is certainly doing that. We've seen some of the fantastic performances of our Surrey players, and are being picked up in international franchises now with the Women's IPL, which I think is fantastic for the sport. But it just shows the potential and the effort that we need to put into this to make sure we get that pathway and we get the strategic direction of the women's game correct. Membership is something that I will touch on. I said I've got a slide a little bit later with a little bit more detail. But obviously the membership continues to grow, which is fantastic. We're just over 19,000 members at this club now, which is incredible. And I think it's it does show a lot about what this club is all about. And I think that is something that we should be incredibly proud of. We have fantastic members facilities across the road there. Yes, we've got one or two snags which we're still dealing with our construction company, but hopefully we're making some really good progress on that, and hopefully those will be sorted out fairly soon. I am aware of a number of issues that have come through from the members through the General Committee that has been relayed to me. I will touch on those, as I said, when I get to the membership slide a bit later. From an EDI and an ICEC perspective, I thought it is a priority for us during the course of this year. Yesterday, our EDI plan, our updated EDI plan, was published on the Oval website, on our Surrey County Cricket Club website. So please feel free to go and click on the link and have a look at where it's been updated. We published it first last year in May of 2022, the first EDI plan that we had. There clearly was a lot of EDI initiatives going on and around the club, but it wasn't necessarily collated into a document and shared shared online and publicly online. So that now has been updated. It's a living document. It will be updated as and when we feel it needs to be. There have been 3 iterations of it so far, and it will continue to evolve as we move through the seasons and the years. But we have a firm commitment to our EDI plan and EDI policy. On the ICEC report, we are still waiting for that. That has been a number of months when it was supposed to have been published. From November last year, and we are still waiting. We're not entirely sure when that will be. I'm reliably told it is imminent, but we're holding our powder dry until that actually is published. What we will do is certainly take time to review that document. We will understand the recommendations within it. As a collective with the ECB, we have agreed a plan on how we will tackle the report and the recommendations within it, and we've worked very closely with them and with all the other counties around the ICEC report. So as soon as we get to know when that is being released, there will be communication with this group to make sure that they're aware of when it actually lands. And finally, deliver the season. It probably goes into my next slide, which I said from a major matches point of view, delivery of the season is absolutely essential for us. And I'm going to make mention of something now, which is probably something that from as a club perspective that we really need to be aware of. And there might be some people in this room who are aware of it, but it is something called Martin's Law. And it is a law that is being passed at the moment through legislation, through government. And it looks like it will be ratified and brought into law sometime next year. During the course of the last couple of weeks, our head of safety and security, David Deej, pulled together with him and his team, pulled together a security forum, effectively, in connection with the Met Police. and they put together the most incredible agenda with some high-profile speakers from Blue Red Light Services, from major events, be that cultural, music, and sporting events, and we hosted it here. We led on that, and that was something specifically that we took the initiative on, because we need to understand the contents of what Martin's Law is. And Martin's Law is actually Martin Hett, who was killed during the Manchester Arena bombings, and his mother has been a serious crusader for this in terms of the roles and responsibilities of people when it comes to hosting major events, and that is detailed from 500 to 800 people and further up, and obviously we're at 27,500 when we have a major match day. But on normal days, we have anything between 400, 500, 600, 700 people on site with our conferencing and events as well. So I will touch on, I've just mentioned it now because it does have implications for us as a club, and we are working through that at the moment. And I know we're in really good hands with Deej and the team. So I thought I would just mention that. But clearly, we've got some unbelievable cricket coming our way, and I use this word unprecedented. It is unprecedented for us as a club. 2 tests this year, and arguably the biggest tests in world cricket. The World Test Championship final, the Men's World Test Championship final between India and Australia. That is in less than a month's time. It is in 2 days' time. It'll be a month's time. And the teams are arriving in a couple of weeks' time. So a huge event for us in terms of hosting that World Test Championship final. And clearly the other massive test match is the Men's Ashes Test match at the end of July. We have the Women's Ashes, which is on around the 5th of July, and then clearly the New Zealand ODI, which is in the middle of September. So from a major match point of view, an incredibly busy summer coming, but that's also underpinned by an incredibly busy domestic summer, as we know. Currently busy with the County Championship. We've got the Blast starting on the 26th of May. We've got Royal London, which is played in August, and obviously we host 100 matches here in August as well. So it is an incredibly busy summer for us, and the implications of our operational delivery are not lost on anybody, and I think we are very well prepared for it. And we're working very closely with either the ICC in terms of the World Test Championship and the ECB from a health and safety and security perspective as well. So a huge summer for us. Some of the club community initiatives, I thought I would mention some of these to you because I think they're really powerful and really important for us to really understand some of the work that the club is doing in the community. The first one is the sixth form state school cricket program. Now, some of you may have heard of this, but the club has partnered with 3 state schools in the Surrey area. Firstly, at Guildford, down in Guildford, George Abbott. We're at Lillian Baylis, just across the road, 50 yards across the road here, and St. Francis Xavier, which is just over a mile away down the road as well. And what we have put in there is a 6th form state cricket program. So effectively, in September of this year, you can go to one of those state schools. You had to apply. There are application process that the kids in 6th form had to go through to apply to be a cricket scholar, if you will, but at the same time as they're studying, they at the same time would then have a cricket curriculum for them to be able to either train in the morning, gym sessions with qualified coaches, with the indoor facilities, outdoor facilities, matches during the week. And that is just an initiative that we felt was absolutely essential in terms of addressing this whole conversation between state and primary school. That is the 6th form program. I think the ambition for the state school program is to effectively have what I would call cricket state schools within the borough of Lambeth. So be one of the first counties to deliver a state school which is actually a cricket school. As you know, from an independent perspective, there are cricket schools. You want to improve your chances of playing cricket professionally. There are schools that you go to. There are universities that you go to. This is a state school program that I'm incredibly passionate about, and we are supporting. I'd love it from year 7 to 11 that when you go into the school as a young kid, you can pick up a bat and a ball in the playground and you can actually start playing cricket. And the ambition for this is long term. So within the next 10 years, can we get up to, say, for example, 20 schools that are cricket schools in and around the Lambeth area, within a couple of miles radius of the Kia Oval and Surrey County Cricket Club. So a really powerful initiative, and we're developing that every day, and we've had some fantastic response from the schools. So a really, really key initiative for us. The Carers Day, it says Carers Day, it actually was more than a day, and it's more than one match. It's over 2 matches. And a huge amount of credit needs to go to Teresa Peters, who cornered me one day in one of the passages on my way back to the office and said to me, I think this is a fantastic idea. What do you think we should do? And I said, right, Teresa, away you go. And to be fair, she's delivered one of the most incredible couple of days that I've seen. It was just the most emotional. The first Carers Day, or the first Carers game, was Hampshire, and it was the Young Carers Day. Now, I looked up the definition because I looked at the Carers Trust. We've had some fantastic letters back from the CEO of the Carers Trust as well about this initiative. And I looked up the definition of what a carer was, and an unpaid carer, because they're all unpaid. And an unpaid carer is anyone who looks after a friend or family member due to illness, disability, a mental health problem, or an addiction that they cannot cope without support. There are millions of unpaid carers across the UK, including an estimated 1 million under the age of 18. I think the issue for me, when I saw some of the feedback and the groups of young carers that were walking around the ground during the Hampshire game, was the youngest carer was 5 years old. The next age up from that was 9. These are people who are looking after, they are carers. They are as young as 5 and 9 years old. And as we hear from that, from a definition perspective, over a million are under the age of 18. I think it was incredibly powerful. It was unbelievably emotional for the people involved. But I think the day itself, or the game itself, was marked by that. And there are so many people who've written in to say what a fantastic initiative it was. And that now is going to be rolled out for the next championship game. And these are more the adult carers, not the young carers, but under the clear stewardship of Teresa, I'm sure it is going to be another amazing couple of days. So massive shout out and thank you to Teresa for getting that possible. Cricket for London, I thought I'll just touch on that. That is a collaboration where we as Surrey have partnered with the ECB as the central body on this in terms of funding, but also the other 3 counties that are in relation to London. So Essex, Kent and Middlesex and ourselves. We formed a partnership because obviously London, one of the most diverse cities, and from an opportunities point of view, to get underrepresented and disadvantaged kids to be able to play sport. Now clearly there's some fantastic programs that are going on in and around London, but this is more a coordinated effort by the 4 counties together with dedicated resource to actually focus on Cricket for London. C4L is what it's affectionately being called, and we are working very closely with the other 3 counties in terms of how we unlock the potential in London. There's a huge amount still to go on it. There's been a soft launch of the Cricket for London program, and we are now working through, as resource comes online with the other counties. We've already appointed Gavin Reynolds from the foundation. He is heading it up for us from a Surrey perspective, but there are weekly calls, or every 2 weeks there are calls with the other counties and with the ECB on how we're developing this program. But another fantastic initiative in and around London. So I thought I would just drop that into the slide as well. As I mentioned earlier, I said from a membership point of view, there are a couple of things which I thought I would just get into a little bit more detail about. I did want to touch on the Kia Oval app that has been developed by our marketing team, George Ralph. It's a fantastic app. It's been a long time in coming, but I think we've got it to a really good place. Fundamentally, the key features of the app are mobile ticketing for all general admission, domestic and international tickets purchased, the ability to share tickets bought with friends and families, key venue information, upcoming matches, incident reporting, news, and other ways of engaging with the club. So it is in the App Store. You can download it. There is a form actually on the back. If you go to the More tab, there's a form at the end. Once you've played with it a bit, please fill in the form, send it back. We will have a look if you've got any recommendations. But ultimately, this is an app to help engage and help, obviously, from our perspective, get feedback, give more information and what's happening. But it's a venue-based app. This will not cover matches potentially that are away from the Kia Oval. It also is it has a particular function around our conferencing and events. where the event's off the field, whether it's ticketing and or information that needs to be shared with people who are coming to the ground for those initiatives. But a massive piece of work on that venue app. This also touches a little bit on the Martin's Law piece, which from a legislation point of view, it's not actually, as I mentioned earlier, it's not actually detailed at the moment in terms of what the requirements are. But we are expecting that as a venue, we are going to need to know the names of every single person that comes to this ground when they come to visit us. That is common practice in a lot of big events now, and it's something that we are going to have to start working towards. So whether it's the digital access, whether it's your membership cards, wherever it happens to, from a membership point of view, how we make sure that those particular cards and the people coming into the ground are the individuals that they say are represented with the card that we have. So whether that's photo ID or chip, or you have to verify who you are with your driver's license, for example. There are a number of ways we are considering how we do that, but it's something that we have to consider because it will become legislation, I'm pretty sure, pretty soon. I'm looking at Deej, and I'm sure he's probably going to give me the thumbs up that that is the case. But we've just got to think of a way, and we will communicate this to the members of how this is going to work. But we do have to think about it. And I know we had some feedback. We had some positive feedback, but we also had some particularly negative feedback around the additional scanning that we had around the Hampshire game. And that was particularly in members' areas. Now, the reason we've done this is the feedback we got last year from the members was clearly there was a lot of overcrowding within the members' areas. Now, just so that I'm sure you all are aware, we have about circa 15 access points into the members' areas from different entrance points through the Galladorri stand and the pavilion. Now, to police the movement of people in and out there, that is something that we have to start considering. We've got new scanners brought in. In the past, you used to be able to scan one scan, and we didn't know whether you were coming in multiple times. And we have it, we've seen it. Surrey board member witnessed a member with 8 members' cards, gave them to his friend, walked outside, gave them to a further 8 mates, and they all came into the ground. And that is the sort of thing we have to try and stop, that migration into members' areas, which will help obviously deliver a far better members' experience in the members' areas, but also stop some of the crowding, but also help us with the migration of members through the members' areas. So it's certainly something we're just thinking about. So I know that it may be a bit of an inconvenience, but I think in the long run, it's certainly going to help your experience from a member's point of view. We've got a new HID scanning process, which will allow you have to clock in, clock out, and then once it's scanned in, that card cannot be used again to scan in unless you've clocked it out. So you can't just give it to somebody and expect them they will come in. So there are things that we're considering around that. So that is feedback I've had. Contacting the GC, I just wanted to make sure that, obviously we've had a few comments about contacting the General Committee. Last year we had about 400 emails come into that General Committee email around the Strauss Performance Review. It is working, it is monitored. Please send us any feedback you're after, any feedback you need. Membership capacity, I think I briefly touched on that, with it be sort of over 19,000, and the capacities from an operational point of view, us having to deliver a fantastic experience from a membership perspective. And the final slide was just to give you a couple of updates on developments at the Oval. I thought I'll just touch on a couple of them. Also feedback that we've had, not only from the members, but also from general public who come into the ground. One of the things that they've lacked, and we've lacked significantly, is decent directional signage. So we've got a proper signage program coming in that will be rolled out over the course of the next couple of months. So we'll be able, everybody will know exactly where they're going. It'll be clearly signposted, and it's going to be a proper program so that people are aware of where they're going around the ground. The Heritage Group, I wanted to touch on this. This is made up of 3 people in the group. Obviously, Andrew Lane sitting at the front, who sort of heads up and chairs the Heritage Group. Bill Gordon and Paul Mooney are part of that Heritage Heritage Committee. They are there to look at the history and heritage of the club and how we bring that to life in and around the club. So not only in rooms, but all the stuff that you see on the walls around the club, how we bring that to life, and they are responsible for that. And I think we're going to see some changes over the course of the next month or two, and certainly an upgrading of some of the photos and pictures that are in and around the ground to really celebrate the history and heritage of this club. The dressing rooms, we are probably, Alec, I don't know, maybe the second worst or worst in the international change rooms in the country. We have got a program this year, in the winter of this year. We are going to be stripping out the home and the away dressing room, and we are going to refurbish the dressing rooms properly to a standard where they probably will be some of the best in the country, if not in the world. It's taken a long time for us to get here. We are looking at this through a number of lenses of how they can be separated, whether you have men's, women's teams, double headers, big enough for everybody to be involved. We've got physio areas, we've got analyst areas, we've got coach areas. We could have coaches, different gender coaches in men's teams. So we've got to be cognizant of all of those things when we put together a design of what the change rooms look like. But as I said, at the moment they are not fit for purpose. And during the course of this winter, from as soon as the last game is here, and hopefully before, well, not hopefully, before the start of next season, we will have a set of brand new change rooms that will be built out from currently what you see and bringing us up into proper first world dressing rooms. New floodlights, this is something a little bit more around and I've heard this a number of times at the club, that something is at end of life. And yes, we do have some issues with our floodlights and particularly our hydraulic systems. They are costing us a bit of a fortune and the maintenance every year. So we're looking at going full LED and static lights. We still obviously got to get planning permission for that. So we won't have the demount, we won't have the up and down. They will be static and they will be up. That is the intention. As I said, we've still got to get planning permission for that. But we are going fully LED on it, which gives us a reduction of around about 45% in the amount of power we use for the lights. At the moment, the lights levels that we've got, at the moment we're running out of bulbs. They don't manufacture those bulbs anymore, and the reflector surfaces that we've got on them are decreasing every year. So the lux levels and the lumen levels out in the middle are not great from a TV point of view, and not even from a TV, from a playing perspective. But LEDs will give us that power, and it's instant power, where we can turn them on and off as you like, and we don't have to wait 20 or 30 minutes for them to warm up. So new floodlights are on the cards. That'll probably be the winter of 24-25. And then finally the Oval Hotel, which you've probably seen as you've walked past. I think you've had a couple of questions, and Chris mentioned earlier to us about residents going, are you sure you've got planning permission that the hotel can go that high? And in actual fact we do, and it is on track to be complete by the end of this year and open next year. So we've got some really exciting stuff happening in and around the club, and I hope that's just given you a bit of a brief of some of the stuff that the club is doing outside of the amazing men's and women's cricket programs that we currently have. Thank you very much for your time. I'm going to hand over to Martin, who's going to take us through the rest of the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve. There's a lot going on, as you can see. So we move to the formal part of the agenda, and we start with item 1, which is the confirmation of minutes. The minutes of the previous AGM, held on the 26th of April 2022, have been available from the club for inspection prior to the meeting, both online and on request. And so could I please have a proposer for that? Thank you, sir. And a seconder? Oh, somebody. Thank you, Michael. And so now I'd like to ask the room for a show of hands from all members present to approve the minutes. Those for? Thank you. Against? Thank you. I am pleased to confirm the minutes of the previous annual general meeting have been approved. Item 2 is the annual report and accounts. And before we move to a vote, I'll just say a few words from me, and then also from Warwick Jones, our interim treasurer, with a review of the year. So 2022 was a very, very big year in the history of this club, as you know. And in fact, September was a pretty big month as well, and there were a few special things happened in September. The first thing that happened was, as you might remember, we won the county championship, and we mustn't forget that. The second is that our Queen passed away, and that was on the 8th of September, day one of our test match against South Africa here at the Kier Oval. And the third big event in September was that Richard Thompson left us to join the ECB as their new chairman. So we put them in order of significance. We won the county championship. So it was a big year for Surrey cricket. We won the county championship. Now, we have celebrated this a few times, and Alec gets a bit annoyed if we keep going on about last year, because he, quite rightly, is more interested in this year. But I think we can spin it out a bit longer, and we can manage one more celebration. We are, after all, first and foremost, a cricket club, and as Alec has said, this is the competition that means more to us than any other. So, just in case you thought we'd forgotten, we haven't. And this is staying in the club longer than I am, just to be clear. So, now, at last year's AGM, there was a question asked, which is, are we going to have a party to celebrate Mickey Stewart's 90th birthday? And actually, we did better than that, because what better way to celebrate Mickey's 90th year than to win the championship here at the Oval, renamed for the day, for the match actually, the Mickey Stewart Oval, and thank you to Kier, our lead sponsors, for their generosity there. And it was against Yorkshire as well. And so that was a great moment. That was during the Yorkshire match that clinched the title. And Alex given us a perspective on last year, but we won that championship in style. We led all season. It was a team effort, a squad effort, brilliantly led by Alec and Gareth and Azza and Jim, and of course our outstanding captain Rory Burns. And there were contributions from everybody. There were a huge part of the squad. I think 50% of the players who played were homegrown, and that was at a time when we provided 9, Alex said 9, I think it's 10 actually, England players. And so we were doing everything right, growing talent and providing it to England cricket and winning the championship. Doesn't get better than that. So this year we move on. This is this year's squad. There's a few missing, but I'll show you those in a minute. And obviously we've made a great start. This is the squad if you exclude the non-homegrown. So, and that picture excludes the Curran brothers, Chris Jordan and Jason Roy. 19 of our squad came through the Surrey system. And that is hugely important. We've referred in the past to a production line, and our academy and our pathways are hugely important. But also, having experienced players makes a difference as well. And some of our overseas experienced players play a massive role in developing our homegrown talent. That's a balance. It's a balance between developing talent and smart recruitment. And Alec is better than anybody at that. If we go to our women's squad, again, our Surrey women last year won the London Cup and they came top of the London Championship. Again, a very talented squad. It's led by Ailish Cranston. And this picture is incomplete because 4 of our women were away when it was taken on England duty. So again, homegrown, supplying England, and there's a lot of talent in this young squad. As has been said, the structure of women's cricket needs to be sorted out. It's not right. But in the meantime, we wish our women all the best for a successful season this year. So it was a big year for the Kier Oval, as you know. The Queen passed away on the 8th of September. 2 days later, on Saturday the 10th, a memorable date, it was a historic moment here at the Kier Oval. And on that day, cricket came together, united, which after a period of being not so united, was a very welcome sight. The eyes of cricket were on us, the eyes of the nation were on us. Anybody who was here won't forget that day. It was an absolutely unforgettable experience. The first public rendition of God Save the King was here, and we had that spine-tingling minutes silent, all observed wonderfully by our members and supporters on that day. And we do these things very well here, and they're not as easy as they look. So we should be very proud of Steve and his team and all the people who made that happen, because it was cricket showcased at its finest. So, last and possibly least, who knows, it was a big year for English cricket, because we, in our tradition of supplying outstanding talent to English cricket, we sent Richard Thompson north of the river to be their chairman, where, as you can see, they have a slightly different dress code from the Giro. This is the first AGM since Richard left, and I think he chaired the previous 12. So it is appropriate for us to record formally our appreciation for his truly outstanding service to this club. I'll say a little more in a second, but perhaps we could just... And our alarm systems have failed because Richard has actually snuck into the room since we started, so he's here at the back. So let me just update you on where we are with the appointment of Richard's successor as the permanent chair here. This is a general committee appointment, and under our club rules, the honorary treasurer steps into the role on an interim basis until such time as the committee appoints a new chair. And at the same time as I stepped into that role as the interim chair, Warwick Jones stepped into the role of interim treasurer in parallel. And that's because, from a governance point of view, it is important that you have a separation of those two roles. The General Committee established a nomination committee, which comprises a mixture of General Committee members, non-executive board members, and which I chair. And the General Committee approved the specification of the role and the approach we were taking. We advertised the role through the website, as you know, and through communications to members drawing their attention to that. We have also used an external search firm to look in a discreet way, more widely, at suitable candidates that might be available outside the club, if you like. This is a very, very important role, and it's very important that our process is inclusive and it is thorough. And the General Committee determined that we wouldn't hang around and delay this, but we also won't be rushed into it. We'll do it thoroughly and properly and inclusively. We've had a very good number of applications and some very high quality candidates. The process for inviting applications is now closed. We are moving towards finalising a shortlist, and I would hope that the process will be concluded within the next couple of months. I'm not going to say any more about it. These things should be generally treated with confidentiality and privacy for the individuals involved, but that is a bit of an update. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the General Committee, the board, and you, the members, for your support to me during this period, and particularly to Warwick, who is doing a brilliant job as interim treasurer. Possibly too brilliant, actually. But so, returning to our review of 2022, this is a pretty important slide. Look, we're not all about membership numbers, but the current number is 19,087, just to be clear. And we have an expectation that it may drift towards 19,500 for this year before we're finished. It's extraordinary that this has grown from 7,000 roughly in 2010. And it carried on growing through the pandemic, which is also extraordinary. Most counties, I think it's fair to say, most counties during that period have experienced a decline in membership numbers, not a growth. And some of this year's growth obviously could be attributed to it being an Ashes year, but actually our recent experience is quite a lot of that sticks. And our membership is in great health, and this is a huge strength of this club. The General Committee has approved a limit. It approves a limit annually now of 21,000. And as Steve has said, we're very, very conscious of the need that the membership facilities and services keep pace with the growth in the membership. These are good problems to have, but they're important. And the new Galladari stand is obviously a big part of that. But it isn't just about numbers, as I said, it is about people. And it was a privilege to host a very special day. This is something Richard Thompson introduced a few years ago, where we recognise members who've been members for 50, 60 and 70 consecutive years, which is extraordinary. And the 70-year list included the great Raman Subbarao, and the 50-year list included two brothers. Not the first time we've had that. Two brothers, Richard and Niall Drummond Murray, so extraordinary. And it was a great day. They had a day in the Prince of Wales room. We saw a great game of cricket against Hampshire. And I think it's an important thing that we do. Not many counties do this kind of thing. It was also an honour for me to introduce Sir John Major when he opened the David Stewart Library in the Galladari stand. Judy and various members of their family were there. This was in memory of a great servant of the club, David Stewart. He uniquely held the positions of honorary treasurer, chairman and president, and was outstanding in each role, and David's very fondly remembered. So this club is all about our people. Now, a few other points I'll go through. Warwick will take you through the financials, but I'm an accountant and I was the honorary treasurer, I can't let it go. So the headlines are that we continue to rebuild the club's finances after the ravaging of the pandemic. We delivered a very healthy 5.3 million of operating profit. That is after charging depreciation of 3.6 million. So the real number you should focus on is £9 million of operating cash profits, usually referred to now as EBITDA. That's the cash our operations are generating, £9 million. And we have a very strong expectation that we will grow both our turnover and that number significantly in the current year. Big reason for our strong financial performance is the quality of the people we have, the quality and professionalism of the people we have, of our executive team and their people. Steve's completed his first year. He's done an outstanding job. There were big challenges last year on the field and off the field, and there are quite a few in front of us this year as well. And he's doing an outstanding job, and he's got a great team. And so I want to formally record our thanks to our executive team. And it's dangerous to name a few individuals. I do want to mention one or two individuals. Lee Fortis, our groundsman, won an award last year for Groundsman of the Year, quite rightly, because he produced fantastic pitches. And so far he's done pretty well this year, but it's a long way to go. And so Lee and his team have done a brilliant job. They're important. There are one or two unsung and maybe unseen heroes here, which I want to just mention. And there are a couple of them who are pretty much unseen for different reasons. Debbie Beasley is the club scorer. She's unseen because she's in the scorebox and you can't see her. But that is a big job. Without a scorer, it doesn't really work. They don't get recognised very often. Secondly, Sophia Robinson heads our facilities cleaning team. You don't see Sophia because at major matches, she comes in when you've gone home. And she leaves just before you get here for the next day, during which time she and her team, have made this ground spotless again. Extraordinary work that they do. So there you are, a little name for the future. The flip side of having fantastic people, of course, is that people know we have. And Surrey has obviously had a name for some time as a place where talent is developed on the field. It's now acquired a name as a reputation for a place that develops talent off the field as well, which means people come here when they're looking. And this is going to be a feature of the future, I'm afraid. It's a good problem, as I said, like some other things. So we've said goodbye to some very good people. Emily Wiles in marketing, George Hampson, who ran our conference events and hospitality, and Scott Carey, who headed our safety and security activity. He was here for 25 years, Scott, and you will have seen him. very occasionally manhandling intruders from the pitch. But he did a lot more than that as well. And so we thank them all for their outstanding contributions here, and we wish them all well. And finally, we welcome some new people. Charlie Buck has taken over as our commercial director, and Andy Waters has joined as the general manager of Oval Events, following Alex Lewis's step up to be our operations director. So we're in a big challenging year on and off the field, and I'm very confident that Steve and his team will do a great job. Steve talked a bit about what we're doing around community engagement and our increasing activity there, and this is important. Our communities, our local communities include the area around here, the Keir Oval, South London, Croydon, and all the towns and villages of the county of Surrey. Those are all our communities. And we have a responsibility to do everything we can to ensure cricket reaches into all parts of those communities and make our game accessible to everyone. It hasn't been so, but it needs to be. So as well as a responsibility, it's a bit of an opportunity as well. There's a lot of talent there, there's a lot of supporters there. And so this is a big deal for us, and we are determined to show some leadership and make a difference. The schools programme Steve's taken you through is very innovative and is a leading project, and we are very passionate about it, as he said. So finally, a bit about the future, and I've called it Our Game because Mickey Stewart usually ends any presentation he makes by saying, all of you are involved, you need to remember it's our game. So I heard that. And we need to shape our game. Last year there were three big issues, probably we might say, facing the game in 2022. We had a leadership vacuum at the ECB, we had the men's high performance review, and we had the issues around racism in cricket, specifically coming from the Azim Rafiq allegations and Yorkshire. Well, the leadership vacuum's been fixed, and with the two Richards in charge, we should be hopeful and optimistic about the leadership and governance of the game going forward. And there will be at the ECB a substantially new board, and there's some great talent on it, I can tell you. The men's high performance review concluded with no agreement to change the domestic season. We talked about it a lot through the closing stages of last season. I'm not going to go over it again. I do want to thank the members for your engagement in that debate and engaging with the General Committee, and that's how this club works. And I think our input was very significant in where the game got to. So it is now confirmed there are no changes to this domestic volume of cricket domestically in 23 and 24. And as we go forward into 23, you might say there are two big issues facing the game. One is we are anticipating the ICC report, which Steve alluded to. We'll wait for its findings. We're not going to comment until we've seen its findings. But it is expected not to be comfortable reading for the game, and it is going to set some challenges to the game, some big challenges. And the game will need to face those and take responsibility. And we at Surrey will play our part in that. We are fully supportive of the ECB's position, of Richard Thompson's position, to make cricket the most inclusive sport accessible to everyone. And the second issue, we might sort of say, it sounds a little bit cliched, is the future of cricket. In a way, the men's high performance review turned into a false debate or a narrow debate. Let's say the challenge facing the game is clearly how domestic cricket, bilateral international cricket and global franchise cricket coexist, how they can work together even. And this isn't straightforward. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of stakeholders. Their interests are not always convergent. There are players, there are clubs, there are grounds, there are clubs with their members and supporters. There are TV audiences, and increasingly that audience is a global TV audience. There are franchise owners and there are financial investors. This is moving very quickly. Very substantial amounts of money are arriving at the game quickly because of the global TV opportunity. And some players will have financial opportunities and choices. player contracts will have to change, and scheduling challenges are not going to go away. This is not a straightforward challenge for us. The domestic game is going to look hard at itself, and we've got to look at what we're good at and what we're not good at. We'll have to look at our assets. We have players, we have grounds, we have long-established cricket clubs with members and supporters. We have player pathways, we have an infrastructure that knows how to deliver cricket, both talent development and matches. And so we will need to be thoughtful and wise, and we will need to be skillful in navigating our way as a game to a future which works for everybody. Now Surrey will do what it's always done. We will do what is right for this club, and we will do what is right for the game. So I'll leave you with that thought. In the meantime, we have a very big summer of cricket ahead of us. Steve's taken you through the major matches that we've got. And on the domestic front, we're going to compete across every tournament, as Alex said, men and women. And we wish our players the very best in that for this season. So before I forget, I think Essex were all out by the end of the day, and this, Alec doesn't like this, which is why it's there. And we're 4 points behind where we were at the same stage last year, but the draw was 3 points more last year, so it's very, very close to where we were last year. So, after all that, I am very happy, though it seems completely irrelevant given what I've just said, to propose the adoption of the annual report and accounts for the year ended 31 January 2023, and I'm going to pass over now to Warwick, who's our interim treasurer, for his financial report. Warwick.
Thank you, Martin. I want to say a few words about four things tonight. I want to talk about the result for the year, some key numbers on the balance sheet, the valuation of our hotel investment, and a view of the forthcoming year. Comparing one year's results with another is always difficult. The touring side and the international schedule itself have a considerable impact on the results. Comparing to the last two pandemic-effective years is even more fraught with difficulties, helped as they were by government and central support to compensate for the restrictions on both cricket and business. But if you can remember what the chairman said, I'm happy to report that the operating profit was 5.3 million. The commercial side of the club has fully recovered from the pandemic. The turnover last year was 46.5 million. The last pre-pandemic year was 2019, which recorded 45 million. Now, having said comparisons between one year and another are fraught with difficulties, I do think that's a useful comparison, and bear in mind that 2019 was not only an Ashes year, but we also had, the Oval also hosted the World Cup. It indicates that we have emerged successfully from the lockdown years, and not every organisation can say that. As well as spectators returning en masse during the season, our non-match day revenue for conferences and events also broke new records, exceeded expectations, and sales broke the £7.5 million barrier for the first time. Of course, bringing the ground back into life brought the associated costs back as well. We had a full year's depreciation, on the Aladari stand for the first year. As the chairman's mentioned, the circumstances of the test in September were unique, but a mixture of insurance and support from the ECB meant the club was not damaged financially. The fixture scheduling was not of the best for the Blast last season, and we're also hit by one evening by a rail strike. Ticket sales were not quite as good as we had hoped. We seem to be back on budget this year, and we're keeping a close eye on the impact of the fixture congestion on the summer. Overall, I think it's a highly creditable result which provides a firm base for the future. Just a word about 2 or 3 numbers on the balance sheet. Again, we have cash balances at a very healthy 16 million, even allowing for the really seasonal nature in which our cash is accumulated and dispersed. One figure which always looks a little disturbing is the apparent net current liabilities, which can often be a sign of needing to pay rather more than you can in the short term. In our case, however, the liabilities include the deferred income of 23.8 million. Now, this deferred income is the cash received in respect of next season for tickets and so on, when it will be taken as income. There is no cash to be paid out in respect to that element of our short-term liabilities reported. The Chairman's quite rightly talked about the cash generated by the business, and it is vital that we continue to do so, not only for future developments, but to pay down our bank debt in respect to the Galladari and the hotel. Now, our investment property. As members will know, the club bought the site occupied by the Oval Theatre in 2019, and we entered into an agreement to build a hotel and lease it to Travelodge. Once completed, we will receive each year a rental, which helps diversify the sources of our income, and at the end of the lease, the club will still have a valuable asset across the road. Furthermore, the hotel will also benefit our conference and events business, with delegates being able to stay virtually on site. The club has not sold the hotel at the end of the financial year, has not sold it subsequently, and has no intention of selling it. So how do current accounting standards require us to show this in the financial reports? They require us to show it as if it was for sale. You may think this is not entirely helpful, and I'm inclined to agree. The development is classified as an investment property. This means that it has to be shown at fair value. That is, what a purchaser might have paid at the end of January for the half-completed site. The value has been obtained from a professional valuer. They started with the estimate of the value of the completed hotel, and from that deducted costs to completion, estimated sale costs, financing costs, and crucially, an expected profit any purchaser might expect from buying the development in its half-developed state. It is the comparison of the resulting number with the actual spend on the hotel site to the end of January that gives the fair value adjustment of 4.5 million shown in the income statement. The assessed value of the completed hotel was broadly in line with the projected total cost of building it. So next year, the value and cost should be much the same. There's one caveat to that which is beyond our control. The value is based on the current market yields for developments of this type. A key determinant of those yields is interest rates. These will change, both up and down over the decades ahead, and will impact on the disclosed value in the accounts. But those movements will not impact on the actual rent received and recognised as income in the operating profit each year, or importantly, the cash received. If all this sounds enormously complicated, it is. But it is a big and potentially alarming number, and I thought I should say something. If anybody wants to discuss further, just buttonhole me after the formal part of the evening. I'll be here for a bit. Or better still, buttonhole Andrew. Let me conclude on a happier note. It is the default position of any treasurer, even an interim one, to be wary and downbeat. However, I find myself having to agree with the interim chairman that the outlook for the finances this year is extremely encouraging. Not only is it an Ashes year, but for the first time in living memory, we have 2 tests, both involving Australia and one involving India. Tickets for both are almost sold out, despite the eccentric scheduling of the international season. Sales for domestic cricket and hospitality are meeting current targets, and the conference and events business is thriving. We will continue to reinvest the surpluses generated in the ground and facilities for members as we have in the past. Steve has mentioned the priorities, and there is much more we can and will do to keep the Oval in the forefront of Test match grounds and Surrey membership as the best value for money it can be. So to sum up, we had a good result for the year, showing the club has emerged in good shape from the depredations of the pandemic. We are generating cash and plan to pay down our bank debt in line with the agreed schedule. The hotel is on track to produce the income stream which we anticipated. We are assessing the impact of the scheduling issues on ticket sales while keeping an eye on costs, but all the indicators about the 2023 season financially are pointing to a good year. And we are continuing to look at how we can invest further in the ground and facilities. The last thing I have to say is to thank the membership for your continued support. We received over 3 million in subs last year, which saw us through the pandemic, that is an essential bedrock of the club's finances. Finally, I second the adoption of the annual report and accounts for the year ended 31st January 23, and I hope you all enjoy your summer. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Warwick. Now it's time that we stop talking and we listen to you. So we're going to open the floor to questions, which we'll do our best to answer. Please could you state your name clearly before asking questions for the minutes. Raise your hand as it says on the screen. And we'll take questions in the room first, and then we will take some questions from those online after that. So please raise your hand if you have a question. Yes, sir.
Thank you for an excellent report, panel. My name is Stuart Agnew. I live near King's Lynn. This is a question about something I read in your report concerning net zero, that you were taking steps to achieve net zero. Many of us think this is a complete wild goose chase. My question, two questions. What steps are you taking on this wild goose chase? And crucially, how much are they costing us? Thank you.
Sorry, I'll pick that up, Chair, if you don't mind. Yes, we've announced that we are wanting to be net zero by 2030, and we are taking a number of steps to do that. As I've mentioned, for example, the LED floodlights to reduce our power consumption. There are a number of initiatives that we've got in terms of wanting to go paperless. We have full recyclable streams for food, for plastic. So as a carbon footprint perspective, we are doing things that are effectively, some of it is relatively cheap and free, just making sure that we recycle properly, and we're cutting costs effectively when we're going to paperless, for example. And all of those different elements are what I would say it's low-hanging fruit and very easy to achieve. We are clearly not, because we are in scope 1 and 2, we are not going to get to 100% net zero by 2030. I think our target is to be nearly between 80 and 90% there. We are planting trees in and around the UK to offset carbon that we are producing. We've got electric vehicles that we are purchasing and we are driving around in, and when we travel, we use electric vehicles. So there's a huge amount of stuff that is low-hanging fruit, as I would call it, to help us reduce our carbon footprint. I think it is not only the fact that it is I'm afraid I have to disagree that I think it's a wild goose chase. We are getting pressurized, it's probably the wrong word, but we are getting feedback from our partners, our sponsors, from people who come, particularly from, in terms of our conferencing and events. We get a lot of them asking us about our credentials, our sustainability credentials, and they want to know when they're partnering with us what that actually means and what we are doing about it. Kia being a prime example. They also wanting to be net zero by just over 2030, I think, as well. So we have Compass, who are our JV partner when it comes to food. They are wanting to be net zero by 2027. So that is a huge part of our zero plan. So there is a huge amount of work going on, which I call as low-hanging fruit, but there is a lot of information and a lot of detail behind that. Yes, there are some costs. We've got some carbon accounting software that we've installed so that we can actually manage our business management systems across the ground, and that will be able to help us tell us where we're getting. But we have a lot of people who are asking us about our credentials, and they're following a lot of what we are doing. So I think we're going in the right direction.
Thanks, Steve. I'll just take a question from the gentleman. Yes, you first. The nearest one first, and then the gentleman next door, and then you.
Oh yeah, good evening. For the second consecutive year, Mr. Chairman, if you could indulge me, if I could ask two questions. I can ask the second one later. My first is, you've mentioned the high performance review last year, which led to an AGM. My name is Christopher Watts, I apologise. And And we know that as a consequence of the ensuing debate, there's going to be no change to domestic scheduling in 2024. I wondered if you could speculate about what happens after 2024. Can you assure us that Surrey will fight to maintain at least a 14-match county championship? My second question is, could you tell us, please, what is the position regarding reciprocity, members' rights when visiting other counties when Surrey are not the opposition? In email discussions last year with Mr. Elworthy, I was advised that such an agreement existed already with Kent, and yet my Kent member friends, having checked with Kent, tell me that no such agreement exists. Warwickshire last week reported in the Sunday Telegraph that there is now an association of 12 counties which have reciprocity rights for members. I do not believe Surrey is one. What is the position with gaining Surrey members reciprocity rights at other counties when Surrey are not the opposition? Thank you.
Steve, do you want to deal with the last one, which I don't know?
Yeah, well, Beck is here from the membership services team, so I would just like to ask Beck from the reciprocity side, because I did speak to the membership services team when this happened. I did actually speak to, and I phoned the Kent Chief Executive, Simon Story, about it, and he assured me that we do have a reciprocal agreement. And as far as I am aware, there are a number of clubs where we do have that reciprocity agreement. What I will have to do is actually formalize that now. I will circulate a note to all the chief executives and make sure that we are part of that, because I was verbally informed by the chief executive that we do have, and I think he even told me that it was a £5 contribution for it from a ticketing point of view. So I will follow that up with all the chief executives, and I will let you know, Chris. No problems at all. Unless Beck has got something further to add. Nothing, Beck? No? Okay, fine. No problems.
Okay,
Chris, I'll follow that up.
Thanks, Steve. On the first question, and then I'll come to you, sir. No, I'm not going to speculate. I've tried to give you a bit of a perspective and a flavour, which you can work out for yourselves anyway, as to the variables and the uncertainties that are in play here over the next couple of years. And I will repeat what I said earlier. Surrey will do what is in the long-term interests of the club, and Surrey usually, when it does what's in the long-term interests in the club, that is in the interest of the game as well. There's rarely a difference. But this is moving very quickly, as I said, and it's a fair question, but the answer is going to be unsatisfactory to you at this point, I'm afraid. And gentleman next to you, I will come to you in a second, so if I may.
Hello, thank you very much. My name's Keith Clark. It's about the 2020 actually, and the seating arrangements for members. I just wanted to know, is there going to be extra places for us to sit? Because last year it was very busy, and I wondered if you were opening up any areas extra for members, because we've got a big membership and the crowds are big.
Sorry, what was your name again? So I was typing something.
Keith Clark.
Sorry, Keith. Yes, we have opened up the top of the lock, which is an extra 700 seats for members. So yes, we have opened them up. We do monitor, and this is something that and again, just touching on some of the data information that we require, we're working on around about a 35% attendance to some of the big matches that we have of the entire membership audience based on the membership packages that members have bought. So we work out that at the Middlesex and Kent games, for example, we will get about a 35% attendance from across the membership. We work that out in terms of what the number of seats are, and then we make sure that we've got the correct number of seats. But that's why we are monitoring the total number of membership quite closely and where the membership is being bought and for which packages. Because again, we can't get into a position where we run out of seats and we have to stop members getting into the areas. So yes, we have opened up some extra seating.
This gentleman here, and then I'll come to you next. Sorry, where was it? Just next to the pillar. Next to the pillar.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Vaughan Harris. Firstly, can I say I think the financial results are incredibly strong. But one of the things I've certainly appreciated over the last couple of seasons, and I'm sure, and hopefully a number of other members have as well, is the credit that we've been given on our membership cards that enable us to buy a couple of pints, which is greatly appreciated. What I would just like to understand, though, what has been the cost of that to the club? How many people did actually use their credit? And is there any data point that shows an improvement in retention as a result of members actually using the credit we've given them?
Andrew?
Right. I'll see if I can answer all of those questions wrapped up in that one. Just to take you back, the reason why we had the members' credit was actually given as a thank you to members who stayed in and carried on paying their subscriptions during COVID when there was no cricket on. So that was the reasoning behind it. Has it increased retention? Not that we could tell from any data that we have, I'm afraid. It's been popular with some, not with others. It's created its own headaches at times. It's been quite a complicated system with bar staff, because quite often they're here for the first day, so they don't understand it, and so that's caused frustrations at bars at times. And also the number of members who sort of phone up and say, "Can you tell me how much credit I've got left?" It does jam the switchboards a bit. So, I mean, at present we don't have plans to continue it. Though, there's always going to be members' surveys out there listening to you guys as to what you really like and what you really want. And I'm sure it would be looked at again if there was a sort of a groundswell of people thinking it's a useful thing.
This gentleman.
Oh, I see, yeah. Yeah. The point is that if Sam Curran wants to play for England, he will have to play 2 county matches. Am I right there?
No,
before he can be selected. And that should apply to Ben Stokes and Jofra Archer. I know he's captain, but that's a ruling, isn't it?
No, sir, it's not. It may have been in yesteryear where you had to have played a county game or 2, but in my recent memory, that is not a rule or a regulation. We've seen previously where people have come back from the IPL 3 days before a test match. Yeah, so it's not a regulation. People are allowed, if selected. That will be on form, not on having played for the... Yeah.
But I mean, I thought that was the ruling.
Yeah, no, it's not, sir. It's not the ruling. Thank you.
As long as he gets in the squad, he deserves to be in the squad, really.
I quite like him playing for us as well.
Okay, thank you. This gentleman and then you next, please.
David Neil Smith. When I arrived before play began on the first day of the season, I naturally expected I'd be able to pick up a scorecard fairly easily. However, it already run out at 5 to 11, so it's obvious you did not print enough scorecards and had an arbitrary limit, I think 250, on scorecards. Can you make sure that this does not happen again in Surrey's next championship matches? The second point, rather a different one, is it's a great coup to have the World Test Championship final here at the Oval. What is the estimate with regard to how much profit we will make? And in particular, since India are playing in it, do we as a club get any share of the television rights and money and so on?
Right, well, the first question I'm going to ask Steve to answer. And the second one, Andrew is going to half answer because he's not going to give a profit forecast, but he might give you some indications of how it works. Steve.
Thank you, Chair. And David, yes, we are addressing it. It is certainly feedback that we've had from members, and certainly it's come through me via the GC about the membership cards, the scorecard, sorry. And listen, based on the number of membership the scorecards that we printed last year, we printed around about 13,000. We threw thousands away. So what we are trying to do is make sure that we are not over-printing. And we are printing now on fully recyclable paper. Again, very low-hanging fruit and something that we can do. We do have an electronic version that people can download, so you can actually put it digitally now. But yes, we are thinking about making sure that we have the right numbers at the right days, because as we heard from the GC meeting this afternoon, potentially, depending on your opposition, you may not need that many in the beginning of matches, but other big games, you're going to need a lot more. So we will monitor it. We're monitoring the quality of it as well, monitoring the numbers and where they will be distributed as well. So yes, the answer is yes, we are looking at it. Understood. Thanks, David.
In terms of the other part, no, we don't benefit from the TV revenue, unfortunately. It would be nice if we did, but that's the ICCs. But however, they do give us the full revenue for tickets, hospitality, and retail catering, so the bar take. So it is pretty good. I wouldn't be so vulgar as to give you an exact number, but I will tell you it's worth about half an Ashes test. So what we're going to make out of the Ashes test, we'll make about half of that for the World Test Championship. So it's certainly going to be 4 very good days for us, I hope, if not 5.
Thank you. It's the gentleman behind you, actually, and then you, sir. Yeah. Thank you.
Chris Coke, I just wanted to ask about the disabled area. I was sitting fairly near the disabled area for the Hampshire match, and I noticed the area is actually pretty small. For people who want to come to Surrey, particularly members, but not necessarily members who are disabled, do they need to say in advance they're coming so that there's enough space for them?
Steve?
No problems at all. Sorry, I missed your name again. Chris, sorry, Chris. Chris, we have had a meeting because it had come to our attention through Teresa again, who came and saw me about the disability areas, and in particular some disability areas that have actually been, or accessible areas that have been reduced in size. And we had a meeting with our head of facilities who's just joined us over the course of the last month or so, and are looking to address the number of accessible seats that we have in and around the ground. So it is something that's on our radar. Teresa is involved with us now from a facilities point of view to make sure that we have the right numbers, the right ramps, the right sizes, all different areas, and particularly with carers who come with disabled people. So we are addressing it, and we have got it on our radar, and the head of facilities is looking at it as we speak. Now, from Teresa, do they have to, before they come in, they notify you, don't they? Yes, they do. Yeah, they notify in advance. Thank you, Chris. No problem.
Thanks, Steve. I'll take one more question from the room if there is one. Otherwise, we'll go on to... Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I did promise you. Beg your pardon.
Good evening. Thanks for giving me the chance to speak. I read an article in the Telegraph, sorry, Mike Sargent. I read an article in the Telegraph about a month ago talking about Middlesex revamping the Allen stand and the Tavern stand, and it also made some reference to Surrey increasing the capacity at the ground to 40,000. I know probably a lot of plans in the embryo stage, but could anyone at the top table give me some details about that, please?
Well, the only person who could give you details on that is the person at the back of the room. He was the person who first articulated 40,000. And I'm sure it is something we will do, but it may take a little longer than possibly was indicated at the time. Okay, thank you. Callum, do we have any questions online?
Yes, we have one question from Zoom. It's from Mr. Ian Cundy, who says, the main problem with T20 pavilion capacity is that those of us who used to sit on the JM Finn balcony want to sit behind the bowler's arm, not so in the Galadari. Has any more members' capacity been identified behind the bowler's arm?
Steve?
No, I don't. It hasn't. We haven't addressed it from a member's perspective behind the bowler's arm, but it is certainly something I'm happy to have a look at and be able to go back and answer that, depending on which side of the ground. But you know, there was a huge amount of money spent on increasing the size and the quality of the members area, obviously in the Galadari stand, and I do appreciate that it's at third man. And I know we've had this conversation a few times, but I certainly will have a discussion with the team and see if there is anything we can do behind the bowler's arm. But that would have to be probably outside of the current area and across the other side of the ground, which might be pretty difficult to police. But I'm very happy to have a look at it. Thank you, Callum.
Thank you very much for that. And just to give you some assurance, some of the things you've raised, as you might have detected, had been brought to the attention of Steve and his team by the General Committee. That process of communication from the membership to the General Committee to the Executive, I think works well. But obviously your questions remind us of those as well. So thank you for that. We're going to move now to the other items on the agenda. The adoption of the annual report and accounts. This has been proposed by me and seconded by Warwick Jones. So we need a show of hands, if we may, on the proposal to adopt those. Those in favour? Thank you. Against? Thank you. I confirm that the annual report and accounts have been adopted. I now move on to item 3 of the agenda, which is an amendment to the club rules. And at the AGM last year, you will recall a number of changes to the club rules were approved. There were quite a lot, and the resolution by which we did that was to adopt a new set of club rules, and they were included on the club's website. One of the changes was not included in the version loaded to the website. That was a process error, for which I apologise. That was the change that was missed, was that requiring a candidate for election to the General Committee to have been a member for 2 consecutive years. That was clearly set out in the AGM notice and in the guidance notes and dealt with quite extensively in the consultations. I'm pretty confident the members were clear what they were voting for, but technically we didn't didn't execute that properly. So the amendment proposed in the resolutions this year is to rectify this, and you don't need to read all that. The bit in red is the change, which says each nominated member is required to have been a member for a minimum period of 24 months immediately preceding that member's nomination to become eligible to stand as a candidate for election to the committee. So I hope you will find that non-controversial. I therefore propose that the rules of the club be amended as shown to require a candidate for election to the committee to have been a member for a minimum of 24 months. I'm proposing it, Warwick Jones is seconding it, so I would now ask for a show of hands in the room. Those in favour? Thank you. And against? Thank you. I can confirm the amendments to the club rules has been approved. Move now to item 4 concerning elections, and we're going to start with the election of the Surrey President. And the General Committee have nominated Patricia Garrard for election as President for 2023, and Tricia's standing unopposed, I should say. It's kind of Freudian, maybe. Standing unopposed, I therefore declare Trish elected. And I'm going to invite Trish to come and say a few words.
Thank you. He's remembered I'm really short. And I can't. My first job as the new president is to thank the previous president, David Pakeman. Along with his good lady, Susanna, they've done a fantastic job in the committee room the last couple of years. hosting, visiting guests and dignitaries, and I'm sure along the way they've had some fun as well as working very hard. But we'd like to give Susanna a little something for her support to David. I expect many of you have come here over the years for the first time and left perhaps with different ambitions. You've loved the club and perhaps you've said, one day I'd like to play here. Maybe I'd like to score a game or umpire a game or join as a member. But I can't believe that anyone comes here and says, one day I'm going to be president of this great club. It certainly wasn't on my mind when I sat in the pavilion, sat in the Peter May stand in 1985 at the Ashes. And to be fair, I expect Andrew, who was sitting in that same stand in 1985, didn't expect to be finance director here either. Looking around the room, I can see one or two who managed to play the odd game. Some umpires and scorers, even some past presidents. But the great thing we all have in common is that we are members of Surrey County Cricket Club, be it paid up members, players, coaches, or one of the fantastic team that keeps the club running behind and indeed in front of the scenes. A lot is said about the Surrey family, and I know that some people bang their eyes at that expression, but let me tell you a little bit about what it means to me. I have my own family here. Some of you may know Phil, now rebranding himself with the greatest of respects as Phil the Consort. I couldn't do this without him, not least because he brings me my tablets in the morning to get me going and keep my blood pressure down. I have two daughters who I know are watching tonight, and yes, you're both my favourite daughters. Laura, who came to her first admin subcommittee meeting at around 9 days old and was a member here until she moved to Devon, but still watches the live stream from afar, wearing her Surrey hoodie and cheering the team on. And then there's Becca, who I know a lot of you will know from working here, or indeed as the youngest ever person, male or female, to serve on our committee. And although she is now trying to help in her small way to rebuild Yorkshire County Cricket Club, she's still a fully paid up member of Surrey. My other Surrey family is the one I've built here over the years. Forgive me if I don't name all of you, because I know a lot of you, but I'll start with David Watts, who I call my mentor, and who in 1990 took me under his wing as the First Lady Committee member here and still supports me today. We have made very many friends over the years. They've been to weddings, birthday parties, graduation parties, and there are even people, and I'm not sure Packers is here, but is he here? Yeah, he is, well done. He came to Laura's christening and 29 years later came to her wedding. Only on Tuesday this week, as Martin mentioned, a lot of us came together to attend Anne Atkins' funeral, the Surrey family together. Evenings in the local Wetherspoons at away games with the Peter May boys, and I will say that other away supporters are available and other pubs are available. But that's just part of our Surrey family. And many a selection policy has been resolved both for Surrey and England, so anytime you want to ask Alec, we've got it sorted. I've been asked by many people if I am the First Lady President of Surrey. That honour went to the late, great Betty Surridge. But what I'm most proud of is that I am just the girl from the terraces, part of the Surrey family. I haven't played cricket. I'm not famous for anything, well, not that they've caught me for yet. But I'm very honoured and grateful that through my voluntary contributions for the time to the club, that they have chosen to give me the opportunity of representing Surrey in this role. And I'm also incredibly grateful for the support that I've been given by so many members. As someone who came to London 46 years ago, I didn't find any streets paved with gold, but I was lucky enough to find a lot of chocolate and silver. May I just close by saying I look forward to catching up with as many of you as possible, home and away. And may I say on this Star Wars Day, may the 4th be with you and Surrey County Cricket Club. Thank you.
move the microphone back up to a normal height. Thank you, Trish. Trish, you've been a fantastic Deputy President and you're going to be an even better President, so well done. Congratulations. Now next is the election of our Deputy President for 2023, and the General Committee has nominated Lord Tony Grabbanner for election as Deputy President, and he is standing unopposed, and I therefore declare him elected. Many of you will know Tony, but for those of you who don't, Tony was, he's an absolutely preeminent KC, and he was on our management board, I think, for a decade, 2010 till 2020, and is a great source of extraordinary smart insight and counsel to the club, and has been even since he stepped down from the board. Anyway, Tony, many congratulations, and we look forward to you supporting Tricia. I now need to hand over to David Pateman to deal with the election of Honorary Treasurer. David.
It's been a fantastic 2 years. Thank you all for your support. Before I do the formal part of my job tonight, I'd just like to say a few words, because this is the moment I go into the long grass, and I'll go quietly, I assure you. Before I have to do that, I want to say a big thank you to you all. It's been a fantastic time for me and Susanna, and a big thanks for all Surrey cricket members. My presidency started, if we all remember, in COVID and the pandemic, and all that meant to our personal and social lives. And I met a lot of you over that time, and really our membership increased over 2,000 during that period, which is a great testament to you and your loyalty, and I thank you for that. As your president, it has been a real honour to represent you at domestic and international level, and I hope you think, when you look at it, that I've done a decent job for you. It has meant so much to me to talk to as many members as I possibly could on the balconies around the ground, and your insights that you gave me, we have used, I use, and remember always, and I thank you for that. 2022, it can be no better time for a president, a sitting president, to be part of the winning of the championship. Everyone involved, from the playing and background staff, my personal thanks for bringing home the trophy to be where it deserves to be. And as Alex said, let's hope it's 2023 as well this year. On the subject of people, I have to say the role of president just cannot be done by one person alone. In this respect, I look to Susanna, who has done such an incredible job over the last 2 years. Much more than support, she's universally popular and a hostess of real style. My thanks and love to you always. Really appreciate it. If I may, gentlemen, thank you. In closing, I say a big welcome to Trish. You've been a fantastic, as Martin said, deputy during my last 2 years, encountered by your consort. You've done a great job. Thank you so much. If there is anyone who deserves to be president of this club in 2023, it is you. One of the great club supporters, loyal servants, and many, Trish, this is your time. Enjoy it, and you and Phil, as much as Susanna and I did. And if you need any help, I've got the past president badge to come and stand behind you. Thank you very much. Now I'll go on to the formal part of the business. If any of you feel a bit, this is what I'm about to say, is complicated, you certainly won't be alone. I'm trying to explain that, well, obviously Martin, as honorary treasurer, and what it states in the club rules, was put forward as club chairman, and when Richard Thompson resigned in September 71. The GC has asked him to continue in that role until the chair is elected, which Martin's indicated will be the next 2 or 3 months. The General Committee have nominated Martin Eden for re-election as honorary treasurer, and he is standing unopposed. I therefore declare him elected. Well done, Martin. I've obviously worked with Martin for some time, both on the board and as president, and I just want to say the seamless way over which he took the chairmanship of this club is nothing short of marvellous. Basically, he was always a difficult act to follow with Richard Thompson. He's not the same personality, but I'm sure talking to Steve, he's done such a first-class job in that role and has gained the respect of all of us around the table. And I do say, there are a fair few of us here, both in the room and on the board and the membership, that had you put your own name forward, it would have got a massive support. But congratulations for the job you've done on behalf of the club. I thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David, for that, and thank you for re-electing me as Honorary Treasurer. I'm now going to move on to Honorary Life Vice Presidents. And this is the top award that the Honours Committee and the General Committee can make. And it is pretty rare, but we have a bit of a bumper crop. So I need a few minutes to go through these. And the first one, very appropriately, is David Pakeman. And David has been president, as we know, for the last 2 years, and David's worked incredibly hard hosting the committee room. Our committee room is the best committee room or equivalent in the circuit, and David has advanced it further, making it the warmest welcome and the most welcoming place to come and watch domestic cricket and indeed international cricket. He also is very attentive to listening and speaking to members, and is a great funnel for feedback from the membership to the rest of us. And he is, of course, a great ambassador for the club, and I am sure he will continue to be a great ambassador to the club. Before he was president, he was non-executive director, both of our main board and of our Oval Events board over a period of about 2 decades, I think. And more recently, and currently, is the chairman of Guildford Management Company. So a massive contribution to the club and a thoroughly deserved nomination by the General Committee to be an Honorary Life Vice President. And I would like to ask for a show of hands in the room to approve the election of David as an Honorary Life Vice President. Those in favour? Thank you. Against? Thank you very much. Congratulations, David. Now, the second one is Alan Dickinson. And you will remember Alan Dickinson. You know Alan Dickinson. Alan's been watching Surrey since the 1950s, when he claims he was just a boy. I'm sure that's right, I don't know. He's subsequently and more recently was a member of the board, or rather the current board's predecessor entity, from 2005. He'll be better known to you, though, as the Honorary Treasurer here for 8 years, 2011 to 2018, following Clive Newton. When Alan took over as Treasurer, the club, you will recall, had some financial challenges, and he guided the rebuilding of the club's finances. And he left us with a strong balance sheet, well, left me with a strong balance sheet, as it happens, though I never told him this before. And that, of course, enabled us to build the Galadari stand. It enabled us to buy the theatre for the hotel, and it definitely helped us be in a good position to withstand the effects of the pandemic. Alan is an eminent banker, and his skill and expertise was very valuable to the club, and I know he was a great support to Richard Thompson when Richard was chair and Alan was treasurer through that period. He left us to join the ECB in 2018, which, as you know, is a little bit of a trend, which maybe he started, perhaps. I think he was the first of those. Anyway, I am delighted to be able to nominate, on behalf of the General Committee, Alan Dickinson as an Honorary Life Vice President of Surrey County Cricket Club. So if I could have a show of hands, those in favour? Thank you. Those against? And I'm happy to confirm that David has been elected, that Alan has been elected as an Honorary Life Vice President. Now the third one is Barry Kitcherside. People make outstanding contributions to this club in many different ways. Like many of you and many of our members, Barry's been a long-time member and supporter of Surrey, many, many years, and a great servant of the club. He's been on the General Committee and he's provided expert professional guidance on property matters on all of our ground developments. But most significantly, and a very significant contribution that Barry has made, he has been the principal sponsor and organiser of numerous player testimonial and benefit years, including Martin Bicknell, Jonathan Batty, Ricky Clark, Jade Dernbach and Gareth Batty. And he's putting in a huge amount of effort, time and skill, and this is often underappreciated. This is an area of activity in a club like ours where the cricket club and the members club come together and exemplify a huge amount of what we're about and what is great about the club. And Barry has done this brilliantly and repeatedly for those players. And so I am absolutely delighted to nominate Barry. He can't be here tonight because of personal family reasons, but he is aware of this, and I'm delighted to nominate him on behalf of the General Committee for election as an honorary life Vice President. So if I could have a show of hands, those in favour. Thank you. Those against? I'm pleased to declare that he's elected as an honorary life Vice President. And finally, Richard Thompson. Surprise, surprise. Can we put that in the minutes, I think? Surprise, surprise. Now, look, Richard is here, so he's at the back, and you know that. Richard's, we've had a few attempts to give him a send-off, but he keeps bouncing back for another eulogy, if that's the right word. His contribution has been simply immense. Richard was involved in the leadership of the club for well over 20 years, on the cricket committee, chaired that, and the last 12 years of chairman of this club. Under his leadership, this club was transformed. He brought in very talented people in key roles. He brought in Alec and Ebony as the directors of cricket. He brought in Richard Gould as the CEO, and more recently, Steve Elworthy as the CEO. During his tenure as chair, we increased our membership massively. We increased our non-match day revenues massively and our profitability massively. They lead the county circuit by a distance, and that mostly happened over that period. We were able to develop the ground. He led that, well on our way to 40,000, it would seem. And he also, and obviously the two most recent developments he's initiated and overseen were the Galadari stand and the hotel. But at the same time, he created an ambition and an optimism in this club, which is hugely important, sets us apart from some, always balanced by respect for our heritage and our values, never forgetting we're a cricket club, never forgetting we're a members club, and of course reminding us about the values and virtues of the Surrey family. And winning the county championship in his final year was absolutely a fitting legacy to his brilliant 12 years as chairman. Richard leaves a great legacy, and I am absolutely honoured and delighted to nominate him on behalf of the General Committee for election as honorary life Vice President. So are there any votes in favour of that? Thank you. And those against, I'll just need to count them. Very good. I am delighted that you are. Right, we have a few more items and then we're nearly done. So item 5 of the agenda is the appointment of auditors. I would like to propose that Deloitte continue as club auditors for another year. Or rather, I would like to introduce that. I'd need a proposer, please. David Gill, thank you. And a seconder. Joe, thank you very much. Could I ask for a show of hands in the room for to approve the reappointment of Deloitte as our auditors? Those in favour? Thank you. Those against? One against, thank you. I can confirm Deloitte have been reappointed as the club's auditors. And we move on to item 6 on the agenda, and this is an announcement about election to the General Committee. First, I want to thank the members who have concluded their 4-year terms on the General Committee, and they are Martin Bicknell, Lizzie Conda, Roger Harmon and David Watts. And my sincere thanks on behalf of all of us as members to Martin, Lizzie, Roger and David for their support on the committee. During this time we bought a theatre, we built a stand, we survived a pandemic, won the county championship, so it wasn't an uneventful period, and they made a contribution to some of that, not the county championship I don't think, but probably the rest. And before announcing this result, I just want to, as you know, we put the election process online this year, and I want to thank Callum for masterminding and overseeing that. And this is the first time we've done that, and you will see that the percentage of members voting this time has gone back up. It's gone up to 14.2%. It was a bit low last year, 11%. It was 17% in 2019. Remember, this is 14% of a very big number now as well. So that's encouraging that with the new system, we're perhaps stimulating a bit more voting interest. So the following four members have been elected to the General Committee in alphabetical order: Kieran Kumaria, Chris Payne, Pat Pocock and Mike Reeve. Some returning, three of you I think returning to the General Committee, so welcome and welcome back. I would also like to thank Caroline Bars and David Wright for standing in this election. The final item on the agenda is honorary life members, election of honorary life members. The criteria for honorary life membership is set by the Club Honours Committee, who then recommend nominations to the General Committee for approval. And the General Committee have appointed the following members as honorary life members. And I'll just say a few words about each of them. First, Patsy Lovell, MBE. Patsy played 128 times for Surrey Women and 10 times for England in a career from 1980 to 96. She was an all-rounder. She scored over 1,000 runs, took over 100 wickets for Surrey Women. She was an England scout for several years. After playing, she's a long-time supporter of Surrey Women. You'll see Patsy on the boundary at every Surrey Women match, keenly observing and supporting the team year in, year out. So absolutely continuing enthusiasm for the club. She's well known to everyone connected with Surrey Women and the women's game in general, and was awarded an MBE in 2006 for services to women's cricket. So that's Patsy Lovell, and congratulations to her. Andy Major was put forward by the Surrey Cricket Foundation. Andy Major has been a member and chairman and president of Newdigate Cricket Club since the late 90s. He's ever present at Newdigate. He does everything, prepares the pitches, does the umpiring, coaches the juniors and the ladies' sides. And he won the Grassroots Cricket Award in 2022, and a very deserved award as honorary life member for his contribution in recreational cricket. Meda Lord will be known to some of you, but not all, I suspect. Meda has been one of the cricket's leading administrators, first at the TCCB and then the ECB for a career spanning 40 years. But her career started here at Surrey, where she worked for Mickey Stewart, and that alone is deserving of honorary life membership. So, and very fittingly, her career, the end of her retirement gift from the ECB was presented to her in the committee room here at the Keir Oval at last year's test, and that was very fitting. Meda was awarded an MBE for services to cricket in 2005, so part of the Surrey family, even though she's been elsewhere. Ian Jamieson served as a non-executive director on the board of Surrey from the moment the management board was created in 2010 until 2020, until last year. So over a decade. And Ian is a corporate finance expert, and he has been a valuable member of the board, non-executive, great support to Richard Thompson, Richard Gould, and so on. And probably his greatest contribution was Ian was a very independent voice on the board, always knew when to challenge, didn't shirk from that, and a valuable member of the board alongside people like David Pateman, who was alongside through that period, I think. So again, a very well-deserved award as honorary life member for Ian. And finally, Alec mentioned this great man earlier, Hashim Amla, recently retired, great of the game, played for Surrey between 2013-14 and 20 and then 20 to 22, with great distinction, massive impact on the field, but a hugely influential figure off the field in the dressing room, loved by the rest of the squad. And so, again, great to see a top player for Surrey becoming an honorary life member. So I would like to congratulate Patsy, Andy, Meda, Ian and Hashim on becoming honorary life members of Surrey County Cricket Club. So well done. So look, that brings to a close our AGM. I know it's been a long session, but there's a lot going on and we have a lot to get through. And thank you for coming, and those of you who've come from Chelmsford, thank you particularly. That concludes the meeting. A few of us are around for a little while if you've got any more questions. And in the meantime, enjoy the evening and please enjoy a great summer of cricket. Thank you.